Have you always wanted to travel? Thinking about where can I go, what can I do, but you're not sure how to get out of here? Well, let me introduce you to my friend Cepee, who does a lot of really cool things and can clue you in on how to get visas, how to go on a retreat, how to connect with a community of folks that have just hit refresh and said, I'm out of here. Everybody, this is Cynthia, Global Traveler Realtor, and today I have the privilege of introducing you to my friend Cepee Tabibian. We met in Madrid about a year and a half ago when I was encouraged to reach out to her by our mutual global traveler friend Judy. Cepee is a co-founder of Shehitrefresh Facebook group with over 6,000 members. It's a community of 30 plus those who want to break free from a routine and start a life of travel. She has a successful podcast, a retreat, and she just recently launched her new ebook called I'm Outta Here, an American Ultimate Guide to Living in Europe. And I just also saw something that there was an article that you also wrote, Cepee, called 11 Burning Questions for Americans Wanting to Move to Spain. So I am so excited to introduce you to my folks that are following me and have some questions answered and get to know a little bit about you and some of your experience, because there's nothing better than having boots on the ground. And today our interview happens to be on the day of the election in the US. So if anybody's thinking that they might want to move abroad because their guy didn't win, this might be a good opportunity for them to look at that. So without further ado, let's hear a little bit from you. So tell me about your journey. How did you actually get started in wanting to travel and move around?
Yes, well, thank you for that amazing intro, Cynthia, and for having me on. I'm really excited to talk to you and your audience about, moving abroad. So for me, I am the founder of Shehitrefresh, and we talk about ages a lot. So I'm going to just, full disclosure, I'm 40 years old. And for me, travel started when I was 17. That was my first international trip. I had traveled in the US before that with my family. But having that international trip at 17, going to the Netherlands for a month, just blew my mind. And as anyone out there who loves to travel, you know how that first trip is and how you kind of get the travel bug. You get bitten by it. And it became an obsession for me that still lingers to this day. So that's when traveling as for leisure started. But quickly after that, that idea of wanting to live abroad, came into my mind, but it was never easy, I guess, to make it happen at the time. And luckily I found a way to make it happen. Now I've been living in Spain for 5 years, but it was a journey to get here.
Yeah, I can understand that. So one of the questions that people always ask is, aren't you afraid, especially as a female, right? So you and I met because my husband and I happened to be traveling, but prior to that, I had done 39,000 miles around the world by myself through Hong Kong and Southeast Asia into Australia and back around again. And I absolutely enjoyed it. And one of the things that I found, because like you, I've been a traveler, started when I was in 11th grade by that travel bug. And your experiences are so much different as a female or as a single traveler, a solo traveler, right? So the question always comes up when I have those conversations about living abroad as a solo female. So tell me, what's your experience been like, and how do you answer that question?
Yeah, I think from a just travel perspective, I think when I was younger, I was naive. So I probably wasn't aware of the dangers out there that everybody was warning me of. But luckily, I've never had any issues. As a solo female traveler and living and coming to Spain and living here on my own, that is a question that I get too. And from my travels, and I think a lot of us come to realize this, that the world is a much safer place than we think it is. Like, I've found so much more good out there than bad. And just in my personal experience, I haven't had anything that has made me, fear being out in the world on my own, luckily, knocking on wood. And so I don't live with that fear. Also, coming from the US, I'm from Houston, Texas, which is a city that has a lot of homicide. Texas is an armed state. And so, just living in Europe, living in Spain, in a country where not everybody has guns, fatal shootings is not a thing here. I just, in general, feel much safer for that aspect as well. And so I just try to let people know, like, the world is a lot safer than you think, but that doesn't mean you have to let your guard down. I'm still a very alert and aware, even though I live here and I'm very independent and do a lot of things on my own. I still like to be aware of my surroundings because bad things can happen anywhere. But, that's not a fear that I have that has stopped me from making the choices that I wanted to make.
That's cool. Yeah, my slogan is always be cautious without being paranoid, right? You always have, no matter where you are in the world, in your hometown or across the globe, you have to be, aware of what's happening around you. So you've been in Spain for a while. How did you settle on Spain? And right now you're in Madrid, but I know you're moving, and that's exciting.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of people ask, well, why Spain? Spain was one of the countries that I came to early on in my international travels. It was kind of like I was trying out different countries in my travels. And Spain, I had that Goldilocks moment where it just felt right. Everything about the culture, the weather, the people, the way of life, I just really, really felt it felt familiar, and I felt comfortable here. And Madrid, I'm a city girl. I like big cities, and Madrid just had that energy that I was looking for in a place. So I'd spent a lot of time back and forth in my 20s and then trying to make it work. And then in 2015, I thought, let me give it one more shot. And I moved from Texas to here and have been here 5 years since and haven't looked back. It's been a great move. And again, it is an amazing city, as the whole world is going through the pandemic right now. I'm sure if people have been watching the news, Spain and Madrid in particular, it was an epicenter in the beginning, and it has been hit very hard. And so what I love about the city just isn't available right now. The social life and just that energy of the city has changed. And I know it's temporarily, but since I don't have to be in Madrid right now, I've decided to move to the coast of Spain, to Malaga, to just have a little slower pace of life.
Wow, it sounds amazing, because that's on the coast, so you'll be getting your vitamin C, right?
Exactly.
So that'll be fun. And what's so awesome about actually being in Europe, Spain, or wherever is the trains and just the interior transportation system makes it so easy to move around, right? So you could pop up and see your friends, spend the night in Madrid, and then head home. But you don't travel alone. You have somebody who accompanies you.
I do. I have a little Chihuahua, Chloe. She's my faithful companion. I've had her for 10 years. So typically when I do travel, because she lives with me, we spend all of our time together. When I do mini trips within Spain or within Europe, a lot of times I'll leave her with a friend just so we can have our space. And also it's just easier to explore a new place without having to worry about having to feed her and walk her. But lately, I took her to Malaga last week when we went to go check out places, and it's just really fun. And Spain is a very pet-friendly city. It was easy to take her on the train. She's small and portable, and it's just fun to go on adventures with her.
Yeah. So did she give the stamp of approval of that it's okay to move?
Oh, yes, she did. She was like, I like warm weather. This is so much better than cold Madrid winters.
Fantastic. So that's always a question too, because a lot of times people have pets and they want to know, can I travel with my pet? How difficult is it? We had 2 huskies in Panama, so it was a little more difficult than just, putting them in a carrier and putting them under the seat. But it's nice to know that in Spain that it's definitely pet friendly there. So that's cool. So how did you get started on your Facebook group, Shehitrefresh? What was the inspiration for that?
Yes, the inspiration really came from my own journey, my own story, and the lack of resources out there. So when I moved to Spain, I was 35 years old, and I wasn't running away from anything. I actually had a really great life. At the time, I was living in Austin, Texas, had a good job, had my condo, my car, friends. Like, it was a good life, but I just felt like it was getting in the way of a great life. And so I kind of left what everybody thought was something really good to leap into the unknown. And at the age of 35, a lot of people were asking, like, don't you feel it was too old to do that? Isn't that something that you do when you're like fresh out of college? How did you do that? What are the resources? What about your career? All these questions. And at the same time, a good friend of mine who was 41 took a sabbatical and quit her job that she had been at for 10 years. And her friends were kind of asking her the same, like, aren't you scared to do this at your age? And how did you do that? And just looking online for resources of hitting refresh, which is a term that we coined, but for changing your life later in life, there really wasn't anything. There were resources for women who wanted to do like a solo backpack trip in Thailand for 2 weeks, or if you wanted to move abroad, but you were, a university student in your 20s. So we saw that gap and we had all the questions from our friends, and we just decided, let's create a community. Let's create a Facebook group. It wasn't even, that well thought of an idea. Like, let's start a Facebook group and invite our friends, and then we can share information there. And from there, in 1 year, it turned into a community of over 4,000 women around the world, which was incredible.
Yeah, that's interesting because having that question, because there's a lot of, traveling is all ages, right? It's funny that the stigma or the little box that people put you in as, well, what are you doing? You've got all this here. Why would you give it up? So, which leads me to the next question, because obviously if you're living abroad, then what are you using for income? How are you financing that? Because that's another issue, right? People really want to do it, but they may be trading their time for other people's money, and they're not quite sure how to transition into being able to travel, live abroad.
Yeah, that's a very important question. I was still working, I'm not retired. I wasn't retiring and coming with my retirement to fund me. I didn't really have a plan. So I kind of did things differently than I would advise people to do. I would say really research and have, a great financial plan. I did have savings, but I knew moving here, I was going to take a pay cut, because for me to get my foot in the door in Spain, I came to teach English on a program that the government has, which was a big pay cut for me. But I was willing to do that for a year just to be here and kind of feel out the system. And in Europe, like anywhere, to get a job, you really have to network. It's really difficult. I think a lot of people are under the illusion that, I can just apply for jobs from abroad and then I'll have an interview and then I'll get hired. It doesn't work like that. There's a lot of paperwork behind the scenes, and it's difficult, especially if you're an American, to get hired. So it's really better to be here, network, and maybe you'll have some opportunities. And that's what I did. So I came to teach English, and I got lucky and I got sponsored by a Spanish company to work in a startup in marketing. And so I always worked. That's how I funded everything. After the marketing position, I found a way to get into remote work and social media and then community building. So that's what I've been doing, is living in Spain, but working remotely for foreign companies. So companies in the US or in Asia. And that's because they just pay a lot better. And also the visa I'm on in Spain does not allow me to work here. So that's how I've been funding, my lifestyle here, is on my foreign income and just a day job.
Very good. Yeah, well, the world has definitely changed after the pandemic. And I think now more than ever, which is kind of one of the reasons I launched this, is that people are learning to work remotely. Companies are more comfortable now with that. And so that means that if you don't have to go into the office, you can actually work anywhere in the world. So it might be a perfect opportunity once we kind of get past this initial stage of what's going on and everybody opens their borders again. So tell me a little bit about your retreat that you do, because I've seen that for a couple of years now and it looks awesome. Unfortunately, I guess it got put on hold for a short time.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So like I said, I've been working for, clients and companies in other countries, but also Shehitrefresh went from being a hobby to a business. So last year we made a small profit, or that's where we dipped our toes in sharing our first product, which was our retreat. And so now we do an annual retreat to Morocco, which is amazing. It's a week-long adventure that's not just travel, because that's a big aspect of what we do, but also a lot of workshops that help women get clarity on what they want to do. For women who are ready to do, something, have an idea, an inkling, but don't have that clarity of exactly what that is or how to do it and what that blueprint is. So we have workshops, we have a life coach that joins us, a lot of goal setting, and just a lot of introspection. And so we had our second retreat this year in Morocco, which was fantastic and ended right before everything shut down for the pandemic. And then we were going to have another retreat in October in Spain. But of course, yes, that had to be postponed. But we kind of have offered a version of it online. This year, I started my first live online course, which actually takes one of those workshops from the retreat and helps women not only gain clarity, but take action to put things in motion for their retreat.
Yeah, that's awesome. We talk a lot about that. I do a lot of education like you and a lot of coaching and mentoring. And it's great to have all that information, but if you don't put your plan together and put it into action, then you never get that wonderful experience. And, I always tell people, because they're afraid to take that leap, but it doesn't have to be forever. If it doesn't feel right, like you did it, right? You tried it a couple times and it just had to be timing. And it was the the perfect time for when it happens. So, life changes, and that's the cool thing is you can always just readjust like we've all had to do recently. So that's pretty cool. And what is your podcast on?
Yeah, exactly. I just want to touch on that point. I love that you said that, because a lot of people who want to make the leap from maybe their conventional life to the unknown, to the unconventional, feel like it is this forever, this decision that is going to alter their life forever and that they have to stick with it. And I tell them the same thing. You can just try it out. Maybe it's not what you thought it was, and you can go back to your old life. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not a failure. There's nothing negative about that. I think you really have to go and see what it's about, and then, adjust accordingly. So I definitely agree with that. The podcast is an extension of the Facebook community. In the community, what I found is that, people just love hearing other women's stories, women who have hit refresh, those corporate runaway stories, just women who have really embraced the life that they want to live. And so on the podcast, we interview a lot of women from the community of all ages, from 30 up into their 60s, who have hit refresh and tell us about their journey and what they're doing now. This season, I'm on season 3. I'm talking to women who actually work in the travel industry and are making a big impact in the world of travel, and they're sharing their own journeys of hitting refresh and how they've built their businesses along the way.
Wow, it sounds like another ebook in the making.
Maybe.
Yeah, audiobook, something like that. So that's cool. I'm so excited for you because you are a true example of what we can do. The sky's the limit, right? Whatever your passion is, whatever what we call our avatars out there, who is it that we're reaching? And we're always looking for, hey, we don't necessarily want to reinvent the wheel, but let me do something like this. So thank you for being such an inspiration and a motivator to a lot of us. We really appreciate that from you.
Thank you. That's so kind. Thank you.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, speaking of books, about your new ebook that you just launched.
Oh my gosh. Yes, I'm so excited. So this was a lifetime in the making, right? So I just released my digital book, I'm Outta Here, an American's ultimate visa guide to living in Europe. Because probably one of the biggest questions I get in the community, while it's a global community, we have a lot of Americans in the group and they want to move to Europe and they don't know how to get the visa. Because it's great to know what are the best countries to live in for quality of life and all of that. But if you can't get a visa to live there, then it's not going to happen. And as we know, visas can be obstacles. So I went in and just knowing, I've been in Spain on 3 different visas, and just knowing people in Europe and other countries, learning about the visa options. I took about 4 months this year to do the research to see what countries Americans can actually move to in the sense of having viable options. And I just wrote the book on that. So the book covers 16 different countries in Europe that are the easiest countries for Americans to move to based on visa opportunities. And there's over 50 visa options in the book. And on top of that, I outlined 34 cities within Europe, within those countries, that are great places to relocate to call home. And so it's just a great resource for anybody who wants to make the leap, but just doesn't even know what their options are. This book will help you get that clarity and let you know what you need to make it happen.
That's really cool, because a lot of times you don't know where to begin. It's overwhelming, right? When you go on there and you start doing some research, but to have that all put into one place is really fantastic. And thank you. Really appreciate that opportunity as well. So how do people find you? How do we get your book, and how do we get on your podcast?
Yeah. So if you go to my website, Shehitrefresh.com, you'll be able to find everything on the homepage there. You'll see the link to the podcast. You'll see the book on the homepage. You can find all that there. If you're a woman over 30 who's interested in making a big life change through travel, you can join us in our Facebook group, which is called She Hit Refresh. And the podcast as well. If you just want to look it up online, you can find She Hit Refresh wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. So we're out there. We're on Instagram too. She Hit Refresh across all the socials.
Yeah, you're really making an impact, and thank you for that, because I know people will be out there looking you up and seeing how to connect with that community. It was funny, I referred somebody to you and I didn't realize, she wasn't yet 30. She's like, I can join in another couple months. I'm so excited. So it was funny. So I'm like, I wonder if we need a She Hit Refresh if you're under 30. There's a whole other thing, yeah.
Right. Well, I always say if you're on the cusp of 30, please come join us. We do have a few 28, 29-year-olds. in the group. And I will add too, just going back to the book, because a lot of people are asking, is this book really just for Americans? For anyone out there listening that is not from the US, this book is useful for any nationality out there. The book is written from my perspective as an American, for Americans, but a lot of the visas that are included in the book are available to all nationalities. So if you're from Canada, or if you're from South America, or even Australia, check out the book, or even the UK. With Brexit, a lot of people are looking for their options. So this is a great book to see also what's out there.
Thank you about that. And I did note that when I was looking at your information, and it's important because sometimes people feel like, well, it doesn't apply to me because I'm not an American. So that's really good. Thank you for pointing that out to us. So is there anything that I haven't asked you that you'd like to share? Maybe you got some secrets coming up.
Let's see. Ooh, actually, no, for anyone out there who's made a change or built a business, I feel like, I've worked so hard the past 3 years in building Shehitrefresh into something that is profitable and that can grow. And I think this year with the pandemic, we're all learning different things about ourselves, that for the next few months and with my move to Malaga, I think I'm going to take a little bit of a step back before I ramp up next year. And next year we'll see, we don't know what 2021 is going to hold. I would love to have another retreat, but again, I don't know if travel is going to be there. I'm hoping that the book becomes, very valuable no matter which way this election goes. And I am hoping to have another online course for anyone who is interested in getting clarity, gaining momentum, and taking action on their dreams. Keep an eye out, contact me and I can give you information. We're hoping to run the online course, like I said, which is one of the workshops from the retreat, hoping to do that in January or February.
Fantastic. Yep, that's always good. And, webinars so that they could just join if it's not a live thing and questions. So, that's so amazing. It's actually an exciting time to be able to live because, being able to move around and work anywhere. And, like we said, it doesn't have to be permanent. You just have to take that opportunity. And, a lot of times, kind of like you, I meet people all around the world. And, if you're not really sure this is for you, you don't have to sell everything and move. You can put your stuff you can rent your house, which a lot of people do, right? And you can put your stuff in storage and just try it out. And if it does work, then you come back and you say, okay, I'm good. I'm ready to go. I'm comfortable with this now. So just knowing that it doesn't have to be a permanent decision, I think is so very important.
I think so. I think that blocks people who feel like, wow, I'm really making such a drastic change. Yeah, I rent out my condo in the US. I didn't sell that. I have things in storage in the US. So even though I've been here 5 years, there are still some things that, that I've left there that I just wasn't ready to get rid of everything or really close up shop. Because also, even though I've been here 5 years and I would like to be in Spain long term, I mean, who knows, right? Life changes and I just want to be adaptable right now.
Yeah, that's good. Just be able to be flexible, kind of go with the wind.
Yes, be water.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Well, thank you so much, Cepee. I really appreciate your time. And I know you've got lots of things going on, so I want to honor that. And I look forward to catching up with you again. Hopefully, we will meet up somewhere around the world. I'd love to come to the retreat or be part of maybe something else you got going on. My husband really enjoyed our month in Spain. Just sitting, people watching, going to the plazas and just hanging out. It's a great life. So for anybody who hasn't experienced that, highly recommend checking out Spain, at least for a short time. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having me on. It was so lovely to meet you in person when we got the chance. So I really do hope that our paths cross again. And thank you for this opportunity.